Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're going to be making some light switch covers. Well, it's a great project, and it's one of the easiest ones that you will do when it comes to the scroll saw. And I mean, you're only limited to your imagination. And it all starts out with some 1/4 inch stock. Well, before we get started, there are some crucial measurements that we really need to explain here so that you can make these light switch covers and they will fit on your light switches. So for starters, the entire light switch cover has general dimensions, and we're just, for the sake of argument, going to pretend that this piece of paper is our light switch cover. And for that, it's going to be 2 3/4 inches wide, and as far as the length goes, it's going to be 4.5 inches long. So 4.5 inches long, 2 3/4 inches wide, and that's pretty much a standard for this. Now, of course, you're going to have your hole in the middle for your light switch, and you're going to need your 2 countersunk holes for your mounting screws. And this particular hole here is going to be 3/8 of an inch wide, and it will be 1 inch long. So this side here will be the 1 inch side, and this dimension here will be 3/8 of an inch. And it will be centered on your entire plate, as well as these dimensions for your mounting holes. They will be centered on this 2 3/4 inch side, and the distance between these two holes, center to center, is going to measure out to be 2 3/8 of an inch. So these are the crucial measurements that you're going to need in order to make a switch cover plate. So let's start off by heading over to the table saw, taking some of our 1/4 inch stock and cutting it into blanks of 2 3/4 by 4.5. Just hang on a second. We're on my show, and we're cutting a rectangle of wood and drilling some holes and sticking it on a wall? Oh man, we can do better than that. We can do way better than that. Well, I said we can do better, and we will. Don't get me wrong, those dimensions that I gave you all work. And if you want to go ahead and change all of your light switch covers in your house to wooden ones, to match, say, your baseboards or your trim, then great idea. I have several wooden ones throughout my place, but we're going for a little bit more creativity today, and I'm going to show you how. It's a small block of wood. In particular, this is poplar, and it really doesn't matter what the species is. The important part is the size. And what this size here represents is the size of an electrical box, your typical single gang wall box for receptacles. And the dimension for that is 1 7/8 across the width, and it's 3 inches long. And basically, you may be wondering, why do we need this particular block of wood? And the reason being is you need to make sure that your shape is going to cover your light switch. And in this case, I've just gone online and I found a line drawing of our little buddy R2-D2 here from the Star Wars series. And there is the representation of our electrical box. And you just want to make sure that when you make this light switch cover, that it's going to cover the dimensions of the box. So at this point, what I'd like to do is place the electrical box the way that I would want it to be seated there, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trace this electrical box onto my printout. And there you may or may not be able to see this, but right here is the outline of our box. Now from there, what we want to do is we want to transfer our measurements that I gave you earlier. And that would be the measurements for the center hole and of course the measurements for the mounting screws. So let's start by marking the center line of our electrical box. So we've marked our line here for our center, which would be at 7/16, and we're just going to line up our ruler here and give a good solid mark line up and down here. The reason I'm marking it so solidly is so that there is no doubt where it is that that line is going to be. Now once we get that, we need to mark our center of our 3 inches. So at 1.5 inches up, we will mark the center line there. And there we have the mark for the center of our box. So with that now, we need to mark our mounting holes that will be centered on here with a distance of 2 3/8 in between them. And we need to do our 3/8 by 1 inch hole here in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that out, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what we look like at that point in time. So let's just have a look at what we've got. We've got a lot of lines, and it's a difficult one to see on this particular drawing, but right there is the bottom of our hole for our switch, and it comes straight up here and then across and back down at 1 inch. We've got just down right here is our mounting hole, and just up here is our other mounting hole. So first and foremost, before we can do much of anything else, what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out just roughly. You've heard me say it before, but we're going to say it again. We're going to spray the back of this with a generous coating of spray adhesive, and then we're going to go ahead and mount it onto our 1/4 inch stock. So we've got the spray adhesive on there. We're just going to lay Mr. D2 down and just rub the printout down onto the board. Just like that. So the next thing that we're going to do now with this is we want to drill our mounting holes that we've already marked, and for accuracy's sake, what we're going to do is center punch them, and then we're going to drill a 5/32 inch hole at both locations with a slight countersink to compensate for the countersink of the mounting screws that normally come with these plates. As well as drilling the mounting holes, I'm also going to drill a blade entry hole for the scroll saw to cut out this center 1 inch by 3/8 opening. And now we're going to go ahead and just countersink both of the mounting holes. You want to make sure that when you're doing the countersink, use a depth stop so that you get both of the countersinks at the same depth. It just looks so much more professional than to have them at different dimensions and different depths. The next step now is we're going to take this over to the scroll saw and we're going to cut out that center opening that will allow the switch to protrude. Well, we've got the center hole drilled and the mounting holes. You can see it kind of looks like a switch cover there, except it's like this on the other side. So our next step, get this thing over to the scroll saw and cut out the silhouette of R2. Now you want to remember, when it comes to cutting these out, try not to cut out interior details, because doing that may leave openings for young ones to stick their fingers in and get their little fingers inside the electrical box. So stick to silhouettes for this and go ahead and cut it out. Well, now you want to remove your pattern, and I've said it before, but for those of you who haven't seen me do this before, the easiest way to remove a pattern is with a heat gun. It really softens up the glue and allows you to peel this pattern off no problem. Just want to be sure that you keep the heat gun moving. Otherwise, it'll end up burning your wood. And you can just see there it all comes off in one perfect piece. And regardless of how intricate your pattern is, using a heat gun you can pull it off in one solid piece. So now what's left to be done here is to clean up the glue residue that's on here with some mineral spirits and give this a good sanding front and back, and especially around the edges. We want to take some of that sharp edge off, especially if this is going to be going into a room where there's young ones. Well, it's sanded, all the rough edges have been taken off, feels great. Let's go over and mount it on the wall and just do a test fit. And there you have it. Does R2 work as a switch plate cover? I don't know. I'm still out on that one, still on the fence, not quite sure. But it's not necessarily about the finished product here. It's showing you the methods of how to get to that finished product. And not every design is going to work. I don't know, this one might grow on me. You're only limited by your imagination in this. I mean, this is my original shop one, the little scroll saw on top of the switch plate cover. I've done ones with cats on the top for people. I've done for a dartboard light, the bullseye with a three-dimensional dart coming into it. There's all kinds of things that you can do. I mean, if you have a child that loves sailboats or trains, do a train, do a sailboat. Don't just sit back and think that you are limited to this rectangle that is stuck on there, as in most cases. Make a custom one for your kids. Make a custom one for your wife, for your shop. How about one shaped like a saw blade? That was my original thought for today's show. Didn't work out that way. I went a completely opposite direction. Anyway, guys, that's it for this week. I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the project, and I'm going to see you again next week with yet another woodworking video.